Hi everyone, I'm Keely Imlaw and I'm doing a presentation on specificity and redundancy. So specificity determines which CSS rule is applied by the browsers. That was the simplest definition I found that helped me to understand it, and that was by Vitaly Friedman. So why specificity matters. There's usually a specificity problem if a rule is not applied to the code how you think it should be. Higher specificity will win out and will be what is displayed on the screen. When selectors have the same specificity level, then the most recent rule is the one used, and I'll go over that a little bit more in a couple slides. The more specific the selector, the more specificity a rule has. So how to measure specificity. So you start at 0 and you add based on what selectors you are using. 1,000 for style attributes, so that's a style comment, that's styling in the HTML versus in a CSS file. So 100 for each ID, 10 for each attribute, 1 for each element name or pseudo element. So for example, the body is given 1 point. Content, since it's an ID, is given 100. Data, since that's a class, is given 10. An image is given 1 point, and hover is given 10 points. So that has a point total, weight total of 122. If per se we were doing also without the image hovering, then that would be 112 points. And if we had different styling without the hover, then that would still apply unless it was changed in the rule with this way, since the specificity is higher. So in this, you can see the selectors and the weight that they have. LI has 1 element, and so that has a weight of 1. ULLI has 2 elements, and so that has a weight of 2. H1 and plus this equals 11 because it has 1 attribute and 1 element. A style tag inline has 1,000 as the weight. So if you style in line in your HTML document, then that will be what is the end-all be-all, the gold standard for it. A paragraph is 1 HTML selector, so that has 1 point. Class has a weight of 10. ID has a weight of 100. And then you combine things together when you have them for your CSS styling. So this is a weight order over here on the side. And this is the order that they're in. The blue is 1 point, so that's, or 1 weight of 1. It has element and pseudo elements as well as HTML selectors, and then attributes and class selectors are a weight of 10. An ID selector is a weight of 100, and then inline styling is a weight of 1,000. And these are based on the examples given in the Smashing Magazine article that I reference at the end. So hierarchy. If 2 rules have the same selector or the same weight, then the last rule defined is the one used. So in this example, the first paragraph styling has the color of plum and a background of beige. So if that was the only thing running for the styling, then the text color would be plum, background would be beige. But because we have a second styling with the same HTML selector with the text color of navy, but the background color does not change, then our paragraphs would be navy with a background color of beige. So examples from my Preston small CSS file. In this I have the image, and then I add a border with that, and then later I have the hero image, article image, and contact image. And those, I add a margin and a width that is the same on those for each of those, but it's not for my other images like my logo or for the 5-day forecast or anything like that. So not every image is given the 10 pixel margin and the 100% width, just those ones that were selected here, and the rest of the images, all of the images still have that border unless otherwise specified. And then another example here is my H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6 have a font family, a color, and a text align. But then I add my motto at the top, and I don't want that to be the same color, and that's an H3 element. So because it's an H3 and I don't want it to be the color specified before, I added a color and a class for the motto so that the color could just change for the motto. So redundancy is duplicate styling rules. Basic redundancy example. So in this example, H1, H2, and H3 over here have the same color, but they're listed on their own. So those are each a rule that the computer has to read to style your document. But because they have the same color styling, and they don't have anything else that differs, we should use H1, H2, H3 with the color and make it so that it's one styling rule because they're all the same. Makes it easier for us to read and easier for the computer as well. So redundancy example in my lesson for small CSS. So before running through Lint, and Lint is a software or a computer, is a website that allows you to insert your files or copy and paste and be able to see where there is redundancy. And there's also another one that I talk about in a couple slides as well. So before running through Lint, I have my header, footer, and H1 through H6 with a font family and padding. But then on the next part, next styling rule, I have H2 through H6 with a color and text align center. But because H2 through H6 are listed twice, it's not actually something we should be wanting to do. So after running it through Lint, I figured out that I should have the header, footer, and H1 listed with their ruling for the font family and padding. And then H2 through H6, they have the same font family and padding, but they also have their color and their text aligned. So instead of reading styling rules from two styling spots, I guess, it's reading it from one spot. I hope that makes sense. And so the redundancy checkers that I checked out were CSS Lint and Code Beautifier. And I'm going to show you examples of those. And then here's my resources for anyone who wants to go look at the articles or websites that I used. So I already copied it and pasted my week 2 or 3 small CSS in here. So you can choose which tests you want to do. And I just had it do everything. So I copied and pasted that in there. And then CSS Lint tells me that there's a parsing error at line 12. So I come down and I look at that and I'm like, oh, okay. And I have to figure out what's wrong with that. And then it requires the use of known properties. So not everything is always up to date on the internet. And so that's something for us to watch when we do this. But I have the grid gap there. And I know that works. So I kind of ignore the warning, but I need to go look at the error. Same thing on Code Beautifier. You can go and input your code, or you can do it from a URL. And you can choose different options, and then you tell it to process. And this is the same exact code, and it's telling me that it's changing the white to FFF, black to 000, white to FFF, and that I need to go look at line 12, 13, and 35. So I feel like it's a good idea to look at different websites and see what works best for us and what we're coding. But I hope that this makes sense and that it helps somebody out this week. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.